Monza. Oh my god, this entire weekend has been absolute chaos. Confused. People have brought deck chairs to the grid. And that's caught me out. Hang on, you'll catch it over my shoulder. You see? Yep. Deck chairs on the grid, of course. We'll start with qualifying because that was the second weekend in a row when we have had so many penalties up and down that qualifying itself, it just seems to be a formality at this point. It's all to do with the power unit pieces and the ICU and all that stuff and all of those parts where each team only has, or each car only has 3 of each engine part. And if they go over that allocation over the season, they then incur these penalties. Now this used to work well when we had 18 races in a season, but now we have 22, 23 races, and that's too many races for these parts for it to work with 3 versions of each part, right? That's what I'm trying to say, backhandedly. It's got a bit clearer now, I'm feeling a bit better. My brain is still, a bit like Canada, my brain is still a bit frazzled. But they need more parts, you've got more races, you can't expect these cars on average to do 6-7 races on each part. You have one incident like Hamilton did in Zandvoort, bang, gone, engine gone. And now you've got 2 engines for 22 races, 11 races each. It's just not possible, it's just not practical. So I really do think to get rid of all of these crazy, stupid penalties, they really need to get rid of that, or at least, not get rid of that, sorry, they just need to increase how many parts they can take, or how many versions of a part they can take before they hit those penalties. Leclerc obviously put it on pole, a little bit expected, because even if he hadn't put it on pole, he put it second, because of the penalties, he would have been on pole. But lo and behold, made the Tifosi here very happy. That's irritating. It made the Tifosi here very, very happy to have a home man on pole, and Sainz net put it on third, only split by Verstappen. Kind of what we expect. The Ferraris look strong, they look quick, they look like they were the ones to beat this weekend maybe. Red Bull seemed to go for a more race day setup rather than quali setup due to both their cars having penalties, but all in the straight line here. For the first time in a while, Ferrari seemed to have the edge. Come race day, Leclerc had the perfect start. It came down to a question of strategy, which usually Ferrari is a twist of a wheel, and I hope that things will go the way, and normally they don't, but it actually wasn't too bad for Ferrari. It seemed like someone was thinking about it this time, but it just didn't quite play out for them, hitting Leclerc so early on off those softs onto the medium. Medium then had to do like 30 odd laps to the end, and it was very, very unlikely that that was actually going to come through. Lo and behold, he did indeed have to pit again and pit for some softs at the end. We'll talk about the end at the end. We'll talk about the end in a bit. But yeah, a bit of a shame for Ferrari. I think taking the end out of it, I'm not sure they had Red Bull on strategy today. I think Red Bull played that well. Verstappen was able to manage his tyres even very well. And even before the safety car that ended the race, he had a 20-second lead. 16 seconds by the time the safety came out, but Leclerc just wasn't closing it down fast enough to really look like he was in for a shout at the win, even though they were trying really hard to be clever with the tyres. Another great job from Russell to take another podium for Mercedes. They're very much there. I don't think, and I still don't think, Mercedes is quite there in terms of out-and-out pace and performance with the Red Bull and the Ferrari, but they are an extremely strong third and are very, very good at being there to pick up the pieces when those two teams fail, have mishaps, have issues with the car, have big penalties that start them at the back. So a good third place from George Russell there as well. Sainz was fourth. You can see how well I can remember the grid now until I have to take my phone out to check the rest of it. We had an amazing start to the race, starting all the way from the back, obviously because of his power unit penalties. He did really well. He was very textbookly using the slipstream and the toe off the main straight and DRS off the main straight, getting cars up the inside of the first chicane, which he did, I think, about 7 times in a row. So it was a very impressive start of the race from him, and he managed to come across fourth. Again, Ferrari tried the strategy of putting both their cars on clean softs at the end, hoping that the pace differential between the soft and the medium/hard would be enough for both their drivers to close those gaps and beat the cars that were ahead of them. Lo and behold, Sainz couldn't do it on Russell, and Leclerc couldn't do it on Verstappen. With the safety car in the end, it looked like Hamilton had taken another risk not to pit, and after the Zandvoort fallout, or the Dutch GP fallout last weekend, I'd have thought Mercedes would have been a bit sensible, or maybe a bit more sharp on making sure that didn't happen again. But lo and behold, because the race then didn't restart, and even if it had restarted, I don't think we'd have more than one lap of racing to go anyway. But because it didn't restart, obviously then that non-stop worked in his favor, and he ended up bringing home 5th for Mercedes. Perez had a good recovery drive up to 6th. He was fighting with Sainz at the beginning, but that was kind of the proof in the pudding that the Ferraris were better around here than Red Bull, because Sainz made easy work of Perez very early in the race, and again later on in the race when his pit stop had circled him back behind him. So I think the Ferraris were quicker, but Red Bull just outdid them on the strategy. It was looking for a double points finish for McLaren, but sadly that retirement from Ricciardo at the end there, which pulled out the safety car, that saw an end to that, but Lando Norris came across 7th. I feel for them, they're just trying to get to the end of the season now. They have some races that are good and some races that aren't. So it's kind of a coin toss with McLaren as to whether they're going to be competitive or not when we start a race weekend. Finishing off the top 10 then was Pierre Gasly in P8. Nick de Vries standing in for Alex Albon, who had appendicitis, and we do wish Alex Albon a speedy recovery, so he's back in the car for the next race. But a great first points finish for de Vries in his first Grand Prix ever. He did really well. He qualified 13th but started 8th. Due to all of those penalties, so managed to hold that position off the line as well, which was really strong for him. Really good performance for him to kind of show those who may have a seat for next season that he's out, he's ready, and he's worth a shot in their car. And closing off top 10 then was Guan Yu Zhou. We have 4 retirements. Both the Aston Martins fell out. Vettel, which brought out a virtual safety car early in the race, and then the other was Stroll, who retired in the garage. Other retirement was Alonso, and then obviously Ricciardo at the end. Now I don't know at this current moment in terms of time of filming why those were, but editing Alice is going to help us out and let us know why those cars were covered right here. Wow, I did not know that. Let's just round off with talking about the safety car before I let you guys go. It's a difficult one because safety always has to be the primary focus on when we have a car stop on track, right? If the car isn't clear, it doesn't matter how badly everybody wants to go racing, you can't go racing again. And it is a shame, and it's always not fun to end with a safety car, especially when the top 6 had pitted for new soft tyres at least for the race, that only had a lap or 2 on them if they were scrubbed. So we were in for a good race and a good fight at the end there as well. So you do kind of feel robbed a little bit, but it is down to a safety thing. If the track wasn't clear, the track wasn't clear, and we just couldn't go racing. I think from a spectator's point of view, it just felt like for a couple of laps it took a while for something to get going to clear Ricciardo's car, in which case I think Monza here just needs to think about their recovery from those positions a little bit more. It's very difficult, I understand that, but having that long of a wait before we could even get a recovery truck to the car is a little bit of a shame, because obviously that stopped us go racing at the end as well. But in terms of booing Verstappen at the end of the race, I wasn't a fan of that. It wasn't his fault. It was none of their fault that they didn't get racing. It's just the way it goes sometimes. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the booing. Verstappen didn't deserve the booing for this one. They never really deserve the booing. If a car is dominant in a season, that's just the way it is. That's not the driver's fault that their team have given them the superior car. It's never fun to end on a safety car, and like I say, let's put the marker in the sand. It's a safety issue first, right? If the car isn't clear and the track isn't safe to go racing, we don't go racing. We just have to stay behind the safety. But it's always a shame, especially when it's lining up to be a race to the end as well. It's always a shame when it has to end like this. But that is it. That is all I have for you today for the Monza track talk. Do let me know down in the comments below what you thought of this race, what you thought of the safety car period. Let's keep it nice and civil. Let's keep the discussion going, and let me know your thoughts for the next race up, which is Singapore. But as always, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It's been an absolute blast, as always. If you enjoyed this video, go show that like button some Monza love. And if you want to support the channel, go hit subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss next time I upload a video. Stay awesome, and I will see you all in the next video. keep spinning now. You feeling dizzy yet? I am.